Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Mantalk.ke. Thanks for coming back every week. Thanks for following us on all of our socials and engaging, and most importantly, sharing. It helps us grow, it helps us get guests, it helps us have more conversations. So today is no different. I'm very excited about this one. We're talking about masculinity, but in the context of being a black man, because I think there is some differences that we can discuss. We're going to talk about our experiences. We've now both lived in both continents, so we've obviously been able to observe. And so we're going to bring our observations to you and have a lovely, lovely conversation. How are you feeling about this one,
First of all, guys, I'd like to explain the following nuances to the conversation.
God.
Thank you. Our team,
Yes,
as we do call
the
it.
team.
The team.
Good old team.
We're coming to the end of our London campaign. It's been a fantastic time. This is actually our last shoot at Camden. And the conversation has come up in the chat where people are saying, what does it really mean to be African? What does it really mean to be black? And what are the differences? Like, is there a difference between being black and being African? And why is it that there has to be a difference? And if it's one thing, what are the nuances around blackness? Especially around the context of masculinity. So we decided, Eli and I decided, let's have another open-ended discussion. Let's do a little bit of studying around the subject, just a little bit, not too much. We're not trying to be the podcast that comes and just talks down and just stats. We did that before. It had its reception. And
Did it well?
Yeah, we did.
Let me just say that.
Yeah, okay, we did. We tried. You know, we did. There's a lot of accents going around because we had a conversation around colonialism.
Because that's the topic we're going to be.
We had a conversation around colonialism, and the truth about it is.
Wait, before we jump in, because it's like one of our final shoots, can we talk about how you're feeling about it being the final shoot, and then we jump into the topic?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. How are you feeling about us coming to the last mile? Because I remember this season, not to go off a tangent, this season was an idea, and we have this thing where we always realize that a lot of our phone calls end up happening in real life. And there's those moments we call bossa nova moments where we're like, dude, what we discussed a few months ago, that is a possibility, has happened. From changing career, changing job, moving to do your masters, then filming while we're here, after doing some other stuff in other African countries. Like, how are you feeling today before we get into the topic?
Oh, damn, man. You got me.
Yeah. It's been a roller
I've had,
coaster.
yesterday was really interesting for me.
Yeah, man.
I don't want to talk about it on camera. Hopefully it matures. But I think there's two ways to think about this. There's two, and I don't like to just limit myself to two things, but there's two ways to think about it. The first way to think about it is, it's exciting, it's exhilarating to imagine that you and I have somehow, in some way, manifested our way to the position that we're in, and have just through pure determination, grit, and luck to even have George and Archie behind the camera.
Oh my goodness! Shout
out to the boys behind the camera, and Beryl back home still able to work on this content.
Rockstar.
And to be able to assemble a team here in London that's able to deliver at the same level that we expect. It is nothing short of exciting, exhilarating, and I'd even use the word miraculous.
Come on now.
Yeah, I think that's how I feel. I feel like I have been the receiver of a miracle. And in what we've managed to achieve in the short amount of time that we've managed to lure you from the trappings of a bachelor life.
Yeah, what a life it is.
In Nairobi. So that's the first way to look at it. The other way we can look at it is humbling. Because all of this is happening thanks to you. Those of you at home who watch us, who continue to push us on, who like, who share, who subscribe, or who just passively watch and share our content in the different platforms where we exist, on Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, and all of these other social media platforms. You give us so much humility, because if it wasn't for you, Eli and I would not have managed to pull this off. And that's how I feel. I just want to say thank you. I want to give you my gratitude. Share this. The more you share, the more you subscribe, the bigger we continue to get, the more we can continue to respect your time. And so I just hope that we can continue to deliver on our promise. So that's how I feel.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I completely echo that. And you're not a man that, you choose your words very well, actually. So the fact you said miraculous, I wish there could be an episode where we actually just talk about the journey and what's happened. But I feel like it would take away from the magic if you saw behind the scenes. But it's not easy to pull off what we've pulled off. So I'm glad that, and I hope that we've earned the privilege of their time as well. I think one of the things this sort of journey has taught us, because the whole point is this podcast is self-development, learning, growing, and this is a real life experience that we learn in real time.
Jesus.
The fact that we've pulled off what we've pulled off over and over again without adversity. There's been times where, not even in London, there's been times during this podcast journey where there's been no studio, there's been no camera, there's been no money, there's been no edits, but somehow there's been episodes that go out each week. And it's a case of having a very competent co-partner. There's a very amazing ecosystem that I have when it comes to my family, my brother, even my friends as well, that share when they don't need to share. There's also the guys that watch us as well. For me, I just realized that if you want to achieve something, it's never just you. That's what I've learned from this journey. It's never just you. And also, it's given me the audacity of hope, right? That the fact we can do this means we can do this times 10, times 100. Like, this is just, this is still, we're still in the proof of concept stage. So I'm feeling from this whole process just very audacious.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot we can do with this product, because it's a malleable product, it's a fun product. It's got two co-owners that are very motivated, so I'm very excited to be able to watch this back in a few years' time and remember what happened to get us here when we're sat somewhere ridiculous, watching back like, oh, that was cute when we used to do that.
Oh my God, I can see my AP after the most ridiculous sponsorship.
Glistening.
Just looking like, you know what I mean? I just looking fantastic, like my life, you know, I'm just playing it in my mind.
And it's a beautiful thing that we get to do something, firstly, hopefully transformative to some people based on conversation I've had, and also something like we enjoy and is fun, and it's turning into revenue and work. That's what people wait years for.
But hasn't it been transformative for us? Like like for me, before I even start, the topic today is about being black and masculinity, but like we have somehow managed to like weave that into our own lives, and like in the fabric of that is the ideal. We have, like, you know, Mantalk represents an ideal that is separate from us, and I always say, there has to be some separation between us and the brand as individuals, because even we are learning from the same thing that we have created. This is the thing we are learning from, but there's that really strange reality that sometimes we find ourselves occupying, where it's the perfect moment, the perfect second, where it's like Eli prophesied himself going to Italy with two black women. We did not know which women they would be. With a boat with the exact same colors. Vintage drop top.
I've not talked about that. Oh yeah.
Like, jeez. Can we?
Dude, I'm wearing the same shirt.
Baby blue.
The baby blue linen shirt.
And look, he's putting it on again.
Didn't know.
And like it's these, I'm saying, moments of magic, like moments of real magic that like we find ourselves in, and we're just so blessed by everyone who's watching this, and like for them to share in this journey with us. Obviously now hopefully we'll be able to expand to share those experiences a little bit more with our community, but like it's been a hell of a ride.
My God. And I think the important thing of any journey is taking stock each moment, because sometimes you can just keep going, but like stopping and being like, yo, we're here, we came from here, let's keep going, we're here.
You know what, damn, where's the camera?
Gosh darn it.
The topic is shifting. We're going
the
topic is shifting.
Gosh darn it. Okay.
Yeah, because like it's the last shoot. So like we won't see each other until these episodes start to drop. And we can talk about blackness and masculinity, but I feel like we'll talk about it as we go, because we are two black men who've experienced life the way we're experiencing it right now. And I just wanted to ask you, as a black man who's been sitting on the chair as a Mantalk co-host, what have you learned the most?
There's ways that I've learned. There's different ways I've learned, right? Ultimately, this is a business. Like, this is a production company that I own with Oscar. And I think I alluded to it in the first episode when we started in London, which is weird. We're going to circle back now, because when we were shooting that episode, we didn't know the challenges that would come by the time we come to shoot this last episode. And I mentioned how important it was to have a co-host that you can lean on when you're not 100, and being able to have someone that can lean on you when they're not 100. Perfect example. Within the last, I would say, 72 hours, I've had a day where I've not felt great. You've had times where things are going very wrong.
Imagine.
This morning, why not? Let's just say this morning. Like, it's been like that. It's taught me a level of resilience that you can't learn from a podcast. There's a level of resilience that you can't learn from a book. It's the one that you have to actually experience. They always say if you're talking to God and you say that you want patience,
He'll give you
he's going to give you
opportunities.
opportunity to wait. Like
Yeah.
you have to actually experience the patient. He doesn't just give you the gift. So the gift of resilience is something that I've been given through the business side, right? On now in terms of socially and as a human and as like my I'd say my morals and my ideals of life and like how that shifted is they always say be the change you want to see, right? And there's a certain pressure that I love that we get to thrive from where because we're talking about these ideals, I have to embody them and it's forced me to carry on my self-development journey so that I'm able to sit here and say something, like to be able to consume things that I can now come and, because I always say regurgitate and share with somebody else in my own way, and then debate and discuss in your way, and then come to a conclusion that somebody can now take, have their own ideal, and then it kind of snowballs. And generally, from views, someone talks about the conversation. So for me, it's pushed me every single time, like get better, so the podcast gets better. So I think that's what I've learned. I've learned the resilience, and I've been able to develop at a much more rapid pace. And I think I've just been ended up with a lot of gratitude just for the whole product. So when these tough times come, I'm like, I'm stressed over something I love, rather than being stressed. It's like what Joanne said. Imagine getting fired from a job you hate. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like I get to be stressed
About
from something
something,
that
yeah.
I'm thoroughly enjoying and something that I'll do for free as well. So yeah, it's changed my life. The podcast changed my life. Let's be honest.
Yeah, facts.
Yeah. Imagine coming somewhere to just shoot. What? Getting on a flight to shoot a podcast. Yeah, it's been incredible. How about you, buddy?
Okay, for me, I'll say this. The thing that I think this podcast has given me is a lot of self-respect. Like, legit.
Yeah.
Like, when I was growing up, one of the biggest struggles I always had was like, what justifies the big ego? Like, what justifies why you speak the way you speak, why you talk the way you talk, why do you carry yourself like that? And like, a lot of people would misconstrue that confidence for... Sorry, my friend. You all right? You all right?
I'm 30 years old.
You know what I mean?
I guess
this podcasting is killing me.
Oh, yeah. It's in my bones.
You've been killing it on the podcast. Anyway, the
Character,
the fact that like I feel like I've been a bit extroverted throughout my life, and I've been carrying myself with a certain level of confidence that came from understanding what I wanted out of this life and embodying it, and it's sometimes translated as arrogance sometimes, and I was like never. I was like trying to create, so I built myself up to become this person, and a lot of the things I was doing was very invisible. Get what I mean? And a lot of the struggles that I went through, and the pain I went through, and the thinking, and that whole mindset that I'd created, I was yet to ever see a product that I could look at and say I'm proud of. Like the fact that I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've always wanted.
It equates, yeah.
I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've always wanted to have my own stories, my own war stories of like, we were building this, we were doing that. There was this moment when there was no this and that. And I was always like trying to, because my career it's a bit of a shelter. Because like, you're not really challenging yourself too much when you're a young lawyer. Okay, you are, of course, but I never had to challenge myself as much.
The risk.
And there was no that comfort with risk that I knew I had to have. And also the justification for the ego. Like, what's your justification for? Why do you justify your confidence? And like, sometimes self-confidence needs no justification. True, but like, sometimes, and this is the quote that I have been keeping in for the whole season over here. And it's by Alex Hormozy, as told by Chris Williamson, which says, you must outwork your self-doubt. You have to create this absolutely undeniable pile of proof, day after day, week after week, that defeats the voice in your mind that tells you you're not good enough.
Yeah.
You get what I mean? You have to outwork that self-doubt.
Yeah.
And the truth is now, when you move a podcast from a barber shop to in Ruaka to shooting in Camden in London, it's very hard. Now you see that voice in the back of your mind.
Undeniable.
Yeah, that starts saying, why are you talking the way you talk? Why do you even run a podcast? Who the hell do you think you are? And the results lately, the results lately are showing, no, I wasn't out of my mind. That vision I had inside of me saying, one day I'm going to own a business like this. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to be very proud of. One day I'm going to create this thing that's going to like at least have some impact, have some impact. I'm not just talking the way I talk or carry myself the way I carry myself because I'm this, delusional person. And now that I'm able to look at myself in the mirror and say, you're him. You're him.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're him. You switched careers, you did.
Yeah.
You're him.
It's facts, you are.
You're him, yeah.
Yeah,
You switched careers from law to finance. You said you're going to build a business that impacts people. You have.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to try and continue to touch lives in the best way that you can. You have.
Done.
You're going to build a mentorship system that you can be proud of. You have.
Done. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like it's just that. I think that's self-respect. Like I'm carrying myself with a little bit more respect, not arrogance, but respect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm very lucky to be that way now.
Yeah. There's something you said that makes so much sense. You said that you used to pray for war stories. And I've always wondered why this has been so difficult, Oscar. And finally, you admit. It's that darn prayer.
Yeah, it's that darn. Like, boy, hey, yo, because like it builds the, that tough skin. Because like Eli, if we've taken this from.
Don't remind me.
We've taken this from the brink. We've lived on the brink. Last week, don't even say. Last week we were on the brink.
We've told the South Africa story many times, but there's been times.
There's been a story this week. This week there was a brink story. Another one of us looking across the edge like this and saying, "Lord,
well, goddamn,
goddamn, and see,
it's a long drop."
And then the worst thing is we can't stop now.
It's too far.
It's too far.
You subscribed.
You subscribed. Yeah, you've said you're with us, so here we are.
Oh my goodness.
On this, fantastic journey. It's like Frodo.
Oh,
He did not know. Did not know who it was when Gandalf knocked on the door. Suddenly, you're at the end. You're beaten. The ring must be destroyed. You're losing fingers.
I've not even seen the film.
Someone has. I know if you have. If you watch Lord of the Rings, then you know.
Oh,
It's like Frodo Baggins.
Yeah.
Two dwarves. Two hobbits.
Are we the hobbits?
Two hobbits. The fate of the universe.
Do you know? I think sometimes you have to be this delusional. You have to be this delusional to be able to climb certain heights. And the thing is, I think we talk like this now because we know where we are already mentally. Like this is okay. We're shooting today.
Yeah,
it's fine. This is a certain episode. We're on like season 20. Like in terms of our discussions.
Yeah.
That's why I think sometimes there might even be a disconnect when we speak, but I think it's because
you're living in the future.
Because we talked about being like this like a year ago. Like we talked about the whole London thing, shooting London, like a year ago. But we didn't say it to anyone. We just had that kind of air of confidence, and then we ended up doing it. So I think that's why we even talk like this. So let it never be misconstrued that it's, like you said, arrogant. It's just like, this is a mindset I feel like you need.
You need
to be audacious.
Yeah.
You need to be audacious.
There's a madness.
Yeah.
Do you know when Eli arrived here, we didn't have a studio?
Yeah.
When he arrived, you saw that reel of him walking around.
Nothing.
Nothing. Zero. Just suitcases with clothes.
And vibes.
That's what has built. So guys, if you're watching this.
Shout out to that.
Oh my God, man. Shout out to that.
Yeah.
So, here we are. We've shot a whole season.
There's a really famous painting I'd urge everyone to look at. If I was a big tattoo guy, I'd get it done on my back. And it's Obama's favorite painting as well, the Audacity of Hope, right? So it's just this encapsulates what we are. The painting is of a lady, right? So she's got bandages all around her neck, around her ears, and she's bleeding and she's beaten, and she's holding onto a harp. And bear in mind, her ears have been mashed up. That's why she's got the bandages. And she's listening to him playing the harp, even with no ears, like speaking to the Audacity of Hope. Like, Google that painting. It's a beautiful painting. It's so powerful. Just by the way, for talking
about. So your favorite bloody painting is a woman's.
It's beautiful.
Are you joking?
It's beautiful because it says so much, and I feel like I feel like that woman.
I'm not the
just
one.
listening to the podcast. Bloody ears, just like.
I knew you were gonna do that.
Like, are you joking? Half as much as we've enjoyed this. Because
I can't even look at you. I can't even look at you. That's such a.
It's such a beautiful painting, bro. I'm getting that in my house.
Gonna be looking at bleeding.
Yeah, so you don't see the blood. It's just a bandage. It's a fantastic painting.
Oh my God.
Fantastic painting.
You paint a pretty grotesque picture.
No, it's actually it's art. It's art. Yeah, it's
je ne sais quoi. Okay.
So So on the back of reflection, having done this podcast, we've done it as two men of high melanin pigment. Is the way I would like to put it. So with that and being, it seems to be like a, I don't know what the word would be, but there seems to be vulnerability, podcast, openness done as a black male, and not for things that normally marry, right? But I feel like we decided to do it.
Yeah.
And what's really funny about both of our stories is the way we both grew up and then met each other and
Yeah.
going on that we've always talked about it, that self-discovery journey at a certain point, I think at the same age.
At the same
At the
age,
same
actually.
age in our life, right? And that's obviously informed by living in society as a black man. You lived in a society growing up as a black man in Nairobi. I think, is it South Sea? I think you...
It was South
It was South Sea,
Sea,
yeah.
a
I think
little
you've
bit of
mentioned a few
Kiambu
times. Yeah,
Road,
yeah.
you know.
And then me growing up like Oxfordshire, Kent, and then being a black boy, black man in this context. So for the last bit of the last half of the episode, I want to talk about like how our black masculinity has evolved, because we've talked about masculinity as a whole,
Yeah.
but now honing in on that being
Yeah.
done as a black man. So
I-
there's a
yeah.
linkage that you said on the train which was so good. I'd like you to share with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is actually something very interesting. Like, we've never really on this podcast asked ourselves the question around what was the effect of colonialism on being a black man in society today. What was the effect, especially in a society that, you know, for centuries dwelt on white supremacist views. How has that really trickled down from a black family based in Kenya, and how can we analyze the disparities for a black family out in Kent, and for you being a second generational, you know, UK citizen who was raised here as a black man?
Yeah.
And there were some really interesting golden threads that you could see, like really consistent narratives. One, I'd like to say that me and Eli come from a community in Kenya called the Meru tribe. And the way the history around our community is, and you know, tribe is a loaded word, and we'll tell you why it's a loaded word in a second. Because when colonialism happened in Africa, and specifically in Kenya, there was a communication, or there was a branding of tribalism, you know, and tribe politics as being a negative thing, which it is, yes, in certain contexts it's wrong. But what they stripped away in doing that, in putting that blanket statement, was they also undermined the administrative systems, the religious and philosophical values of those particular people. Because the Ameru are not just a tribe, they are a people. And they have a history and a culture and a context. And within that culture and context is what it means to be a man in society today. Because the way I was taught to be a man, and we had a conversation around it, was around some traditional values. And some of those values might be truly outdated, but others, again, have helped me and nurtured me moving forward in this world. Now, for example, when we talk about administrative systems of tribalism, I mean, not of tribalism, of being, see, again, the word is so loaded. The administrative systems of our community and of our people one of them was a council of elders. And from that council of elders came a number of families who would help to administer over the large swaths of land that our community tends to own and come from. And in that system, there were systems of virtue, and they were made by men of virtue, people who are virtuous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we as men were taught, like, you are first and foremost a member of a larger community, and you must contribute to that community to add value. But obviously, when the colonialists came, the first thing they called that was, it's primitive, it's backward, it's poor. So in a sense, all of the ideals surrounding black men at the time, they were seen to be uncultured if they were not following those ideals. Yeah, and that's one of those things that kind of disparages or waters down the traditional male roles that, you know, me as an African man you occupy. And because when the colonialist came, and they came with this thing called religion, saying that men should be this and not that, this and not that, and human beings should relate in this way, polygamy versus monogamy, brought in this monolith of ideals that were not necessarily relatable to in terms of the Ameru community. It changed the system administratively. It changed how the family operates as a unit, and it changed how a man defines himself in society. Ultimately. So that was something that I think was really, really key to kind of unpack the best way that we can. I've said a lot of words.
No, that was
a lot of words.
Go off. That's facts. I think as well, one of the I think the saddest things about the history, right, is that every society is flawed. because it's made by humans who are ultimately flawed. It's made by men who are ultimately flawed. However, in every society, there is an underlying, there's a striving for community, a striving for love, a striving for reproducing and bettering the general population. Obviously, there's flaws, and they're probably magnified when you have things like news outlets, you have things like discussion places, right? But at the core, the saddest thing that happened is when the colonialism happened, they looked at one element of it that didn't match up to theirs, and they disregarded the whole system, which is the saddest thing. Now, what that did for me a few years later, now growing up here, is there's already been that narrative when they came over, like, you know, savages, polygamy. It's all like put into a underlying narrative of negative masculinity, right? What happens now is, now fast forward a few years later, when, you know, we start going to the land of the colonizer, now the UK, and they've already got a narrative of us prior to us arriving. They've already gone and told, like, the people of the country that we've gone to these places. And if you read some of the extracts, like, they said we had 3 ears, we had like 6 noses. They've already painted a picture of what these people are.
Yeah.
Now, when you're coming into the society that's got a preconception of you, now when you're existing in that society, even in the modern way, as a black man, the first thing when I go to school is, this guy is probably going to be aggressive. This guy is probably not going to want to fit into our rules because of the first narrative of they're savages, they're kind of violent or aggressive, right? Now, what that means is, if you're somebody like, a very perfect example, we have friends from this culture, Nigerian, right? Nigerian innately, and I learned a very fun fact from our boy Rotimi actually, that where they're looked at as loud people, right? Nigerians. Rotimi was telling me that one of the key reasons this happens is because in their society, in their cities, for you to live in a block of flats, there's generators going the whole day. And so to be able to communicate in that flat, you have to shout. He was telling me, and that's why now when you come to Kenya, if he's talking at his normal pitch, he had to dial his pitch down, because all he's known is shouting over noise, because it's a densely populated place, it's a loud place, right? Now, imagine someone like,
Wow.
yeah, and someone like that now comes into a small village in Oxfordshire, and you're put in a school, and it's parents' evening, and then your dad has come from that society, and he starts talking at parents' evening, and his volume is higher. The first thing is, oh, his dad's like this, so he's going to be like this. So what I felt, I'm not Nigerian, but there was obviously parallels. What I felt when I was sort of growing up is, I was consistently trying to prove people wrong, from being a kid and not even understanding why I've been told to act this way, to now fast forwarding to when I was a bit more aware of what's going on. The biggest example of this was, so I moved from a normal school to a grammar school when I moved to Kent, right? Because I had decent grades. So when I entered the system I entered it at A levels. I went to the grammar school at A levels. So I went there, and I was there on merit. I was there on my intellect. I was there because I've moved county. I need to go to a new school. And when I first entered, already I was put in like bottom sets, even though my grades were fine. I was like, okay, so I have to prove myself that I can do this. Fine. I get into
Are you joking?
Yeah, just off the bat. This is a consistent narrative. Off the bat, I get into these decent sets. I get into now a nice science lesson. I get suspended because somebody next to me swears, and then everyone in the classroom assumes it's the black boy. So like, I've come here to better my education, and already everyone has agreed with the assumption and narrative that this one is going to misbehave. My brother had the exact same thing. He was just put in the lowest sets possible because of what's happening in colonials, which is the lack of education, saying we're backwards when it comes to education, we're aggressive and we don't follow rules and parallels. That's now the trickled down version that you're still seeing consistent factors. That's how I sort of ended up growing up, consistently proving people wrong. And so the inverse of that is my family basically making sure that we're even more prim and proper, putting in ideals like you have to work twice as hard to get half as far consistently, and me thinking that's normal until I talk to my counterparts, and they're like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I always knew I had to.
Yeah.
I have to get the top grades.
Yeah.
Like, that's now the crumbs that were kind of left behind when it comes to colonization. But now the beautiful thing is, now returning home, I'm like, oh, I'm not a black man anymore, I'm a man. So that was probably one of the most, probably why I've stayed. One of the most beautiful things is when I even come back here and I go to a shop, I'm aware. This happened last week. I'm crossing the road, right? So me and my sister are crossing the road, having a conversation. We're laughing, again, volume. We're laughing, right? And there's like three old, cute, adorable little white ladies here. As soon as we're laughing, we come behind her. She looks behind who it is. She sees it's 2 black people. Bear in mind, I'm dressed well, because that's what I do, right? So like, we get there, she's laughing. Sorry. I get there, we're laughing. Immediately she's like, takes a few steps forward. I'm like,
Yeah.
Like,
What's wrong with
do
you?
you know what I mean? Yeah, I'm not going to say what I thought. But like, this is something that I forgot when I went back to Africa. Because
Yeah.
when I'm there, I'm just a dude. Like, I'm
Yeah.
just a guy.
Yeah.
So, but when I come here, I'm reminded of that thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
oh no,
you're
you're a man.
African.
Oh, you're a black man. You're going to be followed in
Yeah.
a certain store.
Yeah.
They're going to look at you sus because they think you can't buy something. But it still trickles down even to where we are in Nairobi.
Yeah.
I remember there was I won't say the brand because I might work with them because I like their clothes. I went to a very high-end brand in Nairobi. And somewhere where like a t-shirt is like $100. So for like Nairobi, that's a lot, right? Even here, it's a pretty high amount. So I go in there, and I didn't say anything, right? And I went in there just dressed, just normal. Like, I don't think I was dressed nice. I think it was just t-shirt,
Yeah.
jeans, because I was just working next door and I was like, oh, let me buy something because I had an event. So I walked straight to the tuxedos, right? Now, if the t-shirt's $100, how much is a tuxedo, right? Shout out to people who say I wear cheap suits.
So I know who that is. I know who that is. Better watch this twice.
listen.
Watch this twice, kids.
that was unprovoked,
Watch
that person.
this twice.
That was unprovoked,
Watch
that
this
person.
twice, because you think we don't know, but we know.
We know. So anyway, so now,
I'm gonna clip this. I hope you know. I'm gonna clip this and send it. Some very
to sender.
nuclear.
Yeah, return to sender. So there I was in the men's section. And then,
No, I'm not gonna say it.
no, we're not using that.
No, we're not using that.
Sorry, it's so loaded. Anyway, let me chill. So there I was. And I felt the same thing I feel here because that store was run by people that weren't Kenyan. Like, I felt the same thing because I went there and they were kind of questioning like, oh, you want that? Oh, and there's that kind of like, are you sure you don't want this? And then I don't know if you've done this before. It's a very toxic thing, but you know when someone says you can't afford it, you end up buying more just to sort of annoy them. So I ended up doing that, and I was like, oh my god, it's been such a long time since I felt that
And
thing
that was in Kenya
a shop.
itself?
In Kenya, in
And
Kenya,
you-
in one of
yeah.
our malls. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of to make my point. It's my journey with the effects of colonialism as a man, as a black man. To answer the question, is growing up, being given a certain narrative, it being proved right at a certain point in my life. Then now going between the two countries, realizing how prevalent that kind of microaggressions are as you exist in certain societies.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you another microaggression that happened to me here.
Talk to me, because you've done the.
Yeah, because now I came this way.
Yeah.
Obviously, being followed in stores. Now, here's the thing, guys. When you're an educated black man in a city full of black men,
Talk your talk.
you know, you're practically enjoying certain privileges as being, you know, at a certain level in society. You might not necessarily be the most wealthy or anything, but like just because you have certain skills and qualifications, you get to actually enjoy that like lifestyle that's associated with that, and you don't feel discriminated against and such. Now, when you come to the UK, you suddenly realize that one, you're African. You're not, you know, it's not told to you, but you're told. You
It's
know?
inferred.
It's inferred.
Yeah.
And when you write those applications and you see the names are African,
Yeah.
you know, Komen Babu.
Uh-huh.
When it's in Kenya, nobody cares what Komen Babu means.
Yeah.
But Komen Babu in in an investment banking application.
Yeah. They say, how do you spell that?
So is it Kime? Is it Kime?
Is it the one with the clicks?
No, yeah. You know, like you know, I've been to Africa
Yeah,
before.
Kosa. It's all the same.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, it's now the inverse. Now, you know, the thing is, if you've gone to certain schools in Kenya, you're expecting, oh, this was actually a revelation.
Come on, hallelujah.
For me, like,
Yeah.
I attended public schools in high school, and my uni was private, but it was not British system. It was, you know, Kenyan system, Kenyan systems of education. Shout out to our systems of education in Kenya. We are doing really well in terms of putting out quality students. But sometimes you can be off. I won't lie, but you know, I think we've been doing very well in terms of producing hardworking, very multi-talented, multifaceted labor. How we've leveraged that is a different conversation altogether, and it puts us in politics. But the truth about it is that we are good enough to compete anywhere in the world, right?
Thanks.
So I arrive here, and you know, you start to present your papers. You're thinking, qualified advocate of the High Court of Kenya, you know, Strathmore University, certain high schools that people will make fun of me if I say, but I will say the Alliance High School I meant. So you know, the Alliance High School. So you're putting it in, and you're thinking that they know what that is here. Then it's like, but we have Eton.
Yeah.
But we have Oxford, but we have Cambridge. And those people exist, and they've done the whole track. They just did it here.
Yeah.
And like they're a bit more respect,
Yeah.
not a bit, far more respected.
Yeah.
Far more opportunities are, so you have to now scrap. And moreover, you're doing it as a black man. Now, there are certain instances where when you pitch yourself, when you talk highly of yourself, or when you seem confident, you're considered to be aggressive. you know, you're like this aggressive, and then, you know, you don't have, your accent is very African. It's just very flat and educated. So that like, seems like, and you're using certain vocabularies that seem to, you know, deduce
yes,
that you know you're a particular caliber.
yes, a tier of intellect that I
Yes. That
admire.
you certainly went to good school, didn't you? Are you an Oxford boy? No, no.
We knew that would happen at one point.
No,
this
we
year,
knew it.
yes.
Yeah, we knew it. But like, then suddenly you start entering conversations that are just not anything you've ever experienced. For example, there was this time I'm sitting in a group in law school, and some guy just comes up to me and says, "So, what's your plan?" And then I say, "What do you mean my plan? Like, do you want to work in any specific law firm?" And I'm like, "Nah, no, yeah, I'm trying to transition to finance, but finance really difficult." Really difficult. Like, it's really hard to get into.
Yeah, it's like that settle down.
I'm not really sure how. But anyway, I really do wish you the best.
Yeah.
It's true. It's an objective statement. Then they say, "And where are you from again?" Kenya. "Oh, they speak really good English over there." Now,
Yeah.
you've seen the whole conversation the way it's gone. So it tells me, finance, Kenya, just.
Yeah.
Well, my friend, I'm not going to say what happened. I'm not going to finish the story there for the sake of humility. But like, there are certain conversations that you keep having again and again that are just like trying to put you down. But you know, obviously, you keep meeting them with a certain flair. And they realize that they're out of line. But I particularly remember a specific class argument where someone said to me, "Why are you so angry?" You know, because he realized and he knew that I was qualified enough to see through the nonsense. And it was I don't want to say a specific class, but then it was a specific class where I brought up that the way certain things are being done just didn't seem correct. And I brought it up in the middle of class, and I said, in my own experience, you can't purport to be you can't purport to mix disciplines, because, you know, immediately in practice, it's something that doesn't make any sense. And the way that conversation went, I feel, was very derogatory. It wasn't derogatory, but was like full of those traps. Those microaggressions of saying, "Yeah, but why are you so angry about this? Why are you acting like you wanna
to dismiss the point you're making?"
Dismiss the point I'm making, because he knows that if I know more about this topic than you do, and you're afraid that I might actually show you.
So his last card is.
His last card is. Well. And it was really, really funny to see that, you know, because I'm coming from a place of, you know, you're coming from a place, to be honest, of privilege, because you've achieved a certain level of education, you've achieved a certain level of career success and experience, and then you're coming here and you're being told all that is worth nothing. You have to be humble enough to start again. And for me now, the question started to become, would it be the same way if a white man came to Kenya?
No.
Yeah. If a white man comes to Kenya with a degree from University of Southampton and starts to say, not shout out to University of Southampton, not to say that, but like, you know what I mean? Like, with a degree from a local London university and comes into Kenya with it, it might be considered even more than the local Kenyan degree that when comes here is actually way more. You know, I'm skilled, and I was like, that's a colonial vestige.
Exactly, yeah.
That's a vestige of colonialism. My high school, the one I went to, was built in 1926. Right? Has a lot of heritage. Yeah, 1926 has a lot of heritage, has a lot of prestige. But then someone who's gone through the British school system here goes to Kenya and is competing for probably the same job that I want. He's the one who probably end up sitting. And it's like, me, when I come here, there's no recognition of those systems. And it's like, okay, then why did you set them up? Why set them up then, oh colonialist? If the skill has gotten to your door and now you can't open it, then you know that's something that I find pretty crazy.
But I feel like where we are right now, which is, we were having this discussion the other day with one of our guests, and I would say our friend, is we're talking about the shift now back to Africa that we've seen in the arts, and I'm curious to see if that happens in the corporate world as well. I think the thing is, here's the question, the great African question: will our society be able to unify using the new information that we currently have in our hands? I know there's the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement that's coming up soon, and I want to see what that happens. Is there a way, because now we're starting to see a movement from the dollar to the yen. We don't know what that will mean. But for the first time, we're seeing Africans move away from the virtue signaling that, you know,
the Western powers have been giving us. Like, how are you calling presidents to come and see you without an agenda?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like in the
yeah.
last, you were seeing Africans say, listen, we are leaders in our own right.
Yeah,
We are leaders
don't
in
tell
our
us how to lead
yeah,
based on
don't,
your systems.
yeah,
and
don't tell
ideals.
us how to lead based on your systems.
Yeah.
And don't come and tell us that you have virtues. I've never seen Africa start a world war.
Yeah.
There's been two. There's been two. None of them. In fact, by the time world wars were going on, my great-great-great-grandfather was grazing.
Yeah.
And the entire Council of Elders system in Meru was doing very well.
Yeah.
So while world wars are happening and you're recruiting and lives are being lost on the back of political agendas and the human race is continuously set back because of Western ideals, you can't start coming to an African country and start saying democracy, start throwing up, throwing ideas around. Like,
The selective amnesia is hilarious.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Yeah.
I think one of the best thing that's happened to me as an individual at 30 years old is, so obviously the thing I explained about, growing up and the kind of pressures and microaggressions I felt, it meant that there is a certain knock on your confidence because you're overstimulated when you're in public, when you're in any room, because you're having to think about 3 different things versus somebody else thinking about one, which is like, I'm having a good time. I'm like, am I having a good time? And if something pops off, is it going to be dangerous to me? Or am I having a good time? And if there's any trouble, I need to be away from it because I'll be instigated in it, right? But so that knocks your confidence. It does, just hands. So my mum used to say that when I used to go to a petrol station when I was about 17, 15 to 17, now you're in that prepubescent age, right? And you know a bit about the world, but you don't know how to combat it. You don't have the skills. I used to walk with my head like this when we used to go into the petrol station, like my head down, and she was like, I used to be so confident. Then I started learning about the world, and you realize you're put in tiers. Like, okay, white old man, white young man, and you know how it keeps going till it gets like, black LGBTQ
African.
woman, right? So I started to realize where I fall in this tier, and I was like, this is horrible. I don't like this. And I didn't have the self-confidence to push yet, right? Then obviously I found it later on in uni and everything because I've now found more black people. But what happened when I moved back to Kenya, when I took my first trip back here, because also, before I say that point, the reason is you still feel like you're in somebody else's country. You still feel like it's...
Really?
Yeah.
Even if you've lived here
Yeah,
all your
you still
life?
feel like you're in someone else's country. You're told that you're not from it. And it's like that whole thing, like, it's like a privilege in some ways that you're here, right? There's still that, it's never said, but there's that underlying narrative. Now, what happens when you go home and you see how incredible where you come from is you come back here, you're like, no, you can have this, I'm good. Like, because there's such a pride of where you're from, and I'd never been. Like, I went when I was a kid, I used to go to Nairobi coast, and I never understood where I'm from. When I knew, and this is the privilege you have when you've come here, after growing and knowing where you're from, you walk here with your head held high, because you know what home is. I didn't know what home was. So now that I know what home is, when I'm here, my level of pride is like, I'm paying for things in shillings. Like, you can't chat to me. Like, it's such a beautiful feeling when you've understood where you're from. So I urge anybody that's like grown up here, I'm not saying to move back, but go back and
Take some
extract the pride and extract the heritage so that you can hold it in your chest when you're walking through other streets. That's what I really encourage, and I'm seeing a lot of people do it. So that would be my one thing to anybody finishing uni, doing your gap year. Don't go to bloody, do you know what I mean, Ibiza. Go home and have a chat with your uncle. Do you know what I mean?
And learn. For me, I think in closing, the thing I'd say, coming to the UK and getting an education here, the thing that I say has really, really added value to me is I honestly feel, or my perception of UK society is that there's a lot of opportunities here for African people, black people. There's a lot of interesting insights that you can learn here, but we must be the bridge for the next generation. I think for the first time, Africa is speaking in its own voice. This is the first time, I think, at least that I know of, where 2 black young men can sit down and, like, even have a discussion that will have the type of viewership or community support that ours will. And the reason behind that is because finally, after decades and years of subjugation, of mental, they say, are you mentally colonized?
Emancipate yourself from mental slavery.
Bob Marley said it before. But our generation is finally opening the door towards Africans telling their own stories and their own perspectives. At last, you know, if I wanted to tell you the story of Kome and Joe and the origin of your people, I can do it now.
Talk your
I
talk.
can teach you, you know.
Yeah,
and everyone is wondering, what the hell is that? We know.
It's provocative.
It's provocative. Some people at home are clapping.
Yeah.
They know what that means.
Yeah.
Because like finally, the time has come for Africans to tell their story to the world and to share their perspective with the world and to make the rest of the world feel the warmth of Africa.
Yeah.
This is the population with the highest amount of young men and women
Facts.
who are empowered and speak your language. You can't
Facts.
speak ours, but I can speak yours. You want me to say some Chinese? Woshi Zhongguo, Woshi Shejunguo. I can speak it.
Yeah.
I can dance with the issue. We can take it anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Africans are finally here,
Yeah.
and we're here in a big way.
Yeah.
And we are going to change the narratives that surround who we are and how we've been perceived by the rest of the world.
Come on.
We are handsome.
Come on.
We're good looking.
Come on.
We are educated.
Come on.
We are capable.
Talk your
We work
talk.
with people like Georgie and Archie behind
Come on.
camera.
Talk your
Beryl's
talk.
going to watch this and edit it. Another beautiful African woman.
Come on.
And then after that, it's going to be distributed
Yeah.
majorly.
Major distribution.
Major distribution.
Shout out to the new generation of Western people that don't have those ideals.
Exactly.
Shout out to those.
Shout out to you.
There's no, like the Georges, like you meet at a level where I'm a human, you're a human, let's work, let's talk.
work, let's do
There's
it.
not the narratives that they're coming with that
Yeah.
maybe they even had to escape
Yeah.
and find their own ideals, which we've been preaching for like a bloody season.
Yeah.
Finding your own ideals. So shout out to the new generation that I think gives so much
Yeah.
hope. When I speak to my little cousin that's now 18 years old,
Exactly.
her perspective on the world and her mixed race friends, and then also her white friends, like the conversations they have are things we're having now. And they're doing that at 18. So I've got so much hope for
Exactly.
the new world, man.
The new
100%.
world.
Come on,
The
now.
new world.
Yeah, the new world
the new
order.
world.
Yes,
Yeah,
new
and-
central bank.
And you
Shout
know,
out to
here's
that.
the funny thing, right?
Yeah.
In Kenya, the same thing is happening. The tenets of white supremacy that were like
Yeah.
whipped into our great grandfathers are finally, the chains of colonialism
Yeah, yeah.
are finally falling off.
Yeah,
And the mindset and the minds and the African narrative is finally expanding, like I've said. But the second thing that's very interesting, tribalism is also slowly and gradually
being
changing,
dispelled. Yeah,
right? You have to remember that the boundaries and the way Africa was drawn up
literally drawn up.
by Otto von
Yeah.
Bismarck in the Scramble of Africa in the Berlin Conference. We can say, but we don't say.
Yeah.
We did history
Yeah.
in the Berlin Conference.
We know how the map really
Yeah,
looks.
we know how the map really
Come on.
looks. Finally, you know,
Yeah.
the maps are being redrawn. We know that some noses were cut off pyramids. It is
Oh,
clear
don't
now.
go there.
We
Woo!
might.
Boy, if you don't stop.
We might say. So finally,
Yeah.
the truth, like
Yeah.
the internet was not something that was anticipated by certain Western powers.
Mm-hmm.
The sudden growth of intelligence,
Mm.
the sudden growth of information was not expected within the African continent. And
Thanks.
now, from a tap of a finger, Africans can empower themselves and listen to podcasts like this.
Yeah, access that info.
Yeah.
100%.
And suddenly start saying, but Eli said this, Oscar said this, I don't agree with this. Let me tell them I don't agree. Let me tap a comment. Let me say I
Yeah.
don't agree.
Yeah.
This happened, that happened. Like, for example, we had a conversation on the standards of living in African countries versus UK. Did you see the comments? I really liked that.
Yeah,
They
interesting.
said, like, in Kenya, the salary is this is.
Yeah.
So now there's discourse. We've seen what's happened in the legal profession back in Kenya, where it's like interns are saying, this is how much we're paid by the
Yeah.
Law Society.
Yeah,
This is how much we're paid.
exactly. That transparency.
Okay, now transparency is coming, which
Yeah.
means you can no longer lie.
Yeah,
You can no longer say this is how much you're making versus this is how much you're making. You can no longer exploitatively take up labor.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like there's a certain wisdom, there's a certain way of thinking, mindset that's
Yeah,
coming.
yeah.
Where like now that there are virtual mentors, if I want to learn, like I just quoted Alex Hormozy,
Yeah.
he has no idea who I am.
Yeah, yeah,
No clue.
Yeah.
Chris Williamson, no idea who we are.
Yeah.
No clue. We're even in the same country sometimes, but
yeah.
they don't know. But then
yeah.
we listen. We know.
Yeah.
We can hear Nelson Mandela's call. We can hear the
Yeah.
call of our forefathers,
Yeah.
Pan-Africanists before us, who made sure that their message was recorded for the generation that is ready.
100, man.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that-
Finally,
that
we're in
knowledge.
this place where it's like, finally, we're in this
yeah.
place where it's like we can create our own stories and tell them to the world. And tribalism, colonialism, and the other isms
Yeah.
that tell us that you have not picked up a book to read. Or
Yeah, it's
are
a
over.
beautiful place, man. Yeah, because they say the fact that knowledge is power is for a reason. So I
Exactly.
think withholding it is abuse.
Exactly.
So I'm glad that there's a lot less abuse now, and there's access to info and knowledge and podcasts like this. So I hope
You enjoy this podcast?
Half as much.
As we enjoy making it.
Because we had a ball.
Because we did.
God, what a season.
What a season.
See you next time. Where are we going to be?
I don't know.
South Africa?
I don't know.
UK?
I don't
America?
know. I don't
we
know.
don't know.
We don't know.
But join us next time, please. But of course, why am I friend? Cheers.